This is a late 1970s or possibly early 1980s Sears portable heater that I had just acquired. I've had it for a little while, but I needed to get into it and take it apart. But as you can see, what makes this thing particularly special and made it a really good catch for me was it has the original box. Uh, it's actually got the features it has is it's fan forced, automatic thermostat, and what's really kind of unusual is it's got 3 heat settings. A lot of these usually have 2 heat settings. The little other features that it has that it shows kind of down in the lower part next to the drawing of the heater is it's got the safety tip over switch, which most radiant ribbon type heaters have, an instant ribbon heating element, baked enamel steel case, and just for that kind of late 70s, early 80s flair, the grill and the reflector pan are actually brass colored instead of the typical silver that a lot of these have. And the 3 heat settings are 1000, 1250, and 1500 watts. And what is really special about this is also that I've even got the original documentation that comes with it. And it's really cool. It shows all the little rules for safe operation and the operating instructions. And it also has a little thing that tells you about what the heating elements do. Describes them as iron, chromium, aluminum ribbon elements. I always thought they were nickel chromium or nichrome. At any rate, enough of showing you the box and the documentation. What we're going to show you now is the heater itself. And as you can see, we'll bring this thing up a little bit closer here to the edge of the table so that you can see it a little bit better. This example is pretty much mint. I mean, there's nothing really wrong with it. It hadn't been used to death. It hadn't been thrashed. The heating elements that are in it look really good. They're not, all burned up looking or anything of that sort. The only thing I did have to do to it, because I think this thing had been sitting in storage for such a long time that the oil in the fan motor had kind of gone a bit stiff. So when I first got it, the fan would hardly turn over at all. And what I had to do was disassemble this thing and get inside of it to get at the fan motor and oil it. It's just got a little C-frame motor with a little two-bladed fan on it. And that's mounted up to the left, sort of in the upper left towards the middle and back of the heater. It's got a little shroud. And what it does is it pulls air in from the left side and it blows it out through vents that are around the perimeter of the heater, of the reflector pan where the heating elements live. What's interesting about this heater is on the 1000 and 1250 watt settings, it actually has a secondary set of heating elements that are sort of down below along the bottom underneath the reflector pan. And there are 3 little vents that are along there. And what it does is it sort of acts as a radiant and true fan forced heater when you've got it in that mode. But when you put it in high, in 1500 watt mode, it turns off the lower heating elements, and then the ones that are up above get really bright. And it kicks out a hellish amount of heat on high. So what we're going to do now is turn this thing on with the thermostat, and that's the knob there in the upper left-hand corner. We'll turn it all the way up, so that way it won't cycle off on us. And the setting that I have it on is the low setting. And the little two-bladed blower fan that it's got is very quiet. I mean, it just makes a nice little whisper. And if you actually put your hand sort of up to towards the front of the heater, about a foot away, you can actually feel the fan-forced heat coming out of the vents on it. It's kind of difficult to see, but underneath, if you might be able to see through the holes underneath the radiant, the little additional heating elements that are mounted underneath. We will now turn this heater up to medium, and that's on the little 3-position rocker switch there. it'll be pushed towards the top. And that'll put it up to 1,250 watts. And as you can see, it gets a little bit brighter. And it starts kicking out a little bit more heat. I can actually feel it from where I am sitting. The fan does not change speed as you turn the heat setting up. It usually just stays on the same speed. I've seen some of these newer versions of these heaters that actually change the fan speed. I've got an Arvin Alert that I have, which is basically a descendant of this heater that has a 2-speed fan that goes on high speed when you turn the heater on its high setting, and low speed when the heater's on its low setting. So this fan is sort of that heater's predecessor, and I will do a more detailed video on that heater a little bit later. One of the other features that this heater does have is if it tips over, it has a tip-over safety switch that'll cut the power to it. So we'll just tip it forward and just kind of show that to you. Well, that didn't go too well, but at any rate, almost knocked it off of the table. Now it's kind of buzzing angrily at me. That's the perils of live TV. So now what we're going to do is turn this puppy up to the high setting, and you'll see the real sun-like warmth that it gets when you really crank it up. And that's the bottom position on the little 3-position rocker switch, so we'll flip that down to there. And yeah, now you can see it gets super bright, and the heat coming out of it is pretty intense. And what we'll do now is turn it back off. And as you can see, it just, the blower fan, I just saw the little blades just come to a stop. It doesn't have the greatest spin down time, but I think it's because it's just a really small fan. So at any rate, this is my Sears Tri-Heat heater, Deluxe Tri-Heat Automatic, as it says on the front of it. And I figured this would be appropriate to show on this mid-December day. After all, it's a little bit insane to talk about fans, which you use for cooling. It's a little bit more appropriate to talk about heaters, because it's sort of a cold, rainy day today. So at any rate, as we get into the holidays, I wish everybody a good holiday season, and more videos on this kind of stuff to come as we go forward. Later, guys.